The stars hung silently over the barren surface of Korath 7. Its two suns glared weakly through the thin clouds, casting jagged shadows across the craggy landscape. From orbit, the planet seemed lifeless, but in truth it was a stronghold of the Orc clans, brutal, disciplined, and merciless. A small human exploration vessel, the Endeavor, hovered cautiously above the atmosphere. Inside, Jax moved among the corridors with quiet determination. He was young, just 28, but he had a reputation for solving problems others would rather ignore. Today, he was working on a stubborn energy conduit that had refused to stabilize for 3 days straight. "Come on, work with me," he muttered under his breath, tightening the final coupling. Sparks flew, and the metal hissed as it connected. The ship shuddered slightly, a good sign, and he smiled. Jax wasn't alone. His crewmates, a mix of engineers and scouts, were stationed nearby, monitoring the ship's outer hull for Orc patrols. The Orcs were not friendly. They considered humans weak, fragile, and unworthy of respect. Many human crews had tried to explore near Korath 7, and many had failed. "Systems nominal," Jax said, stepping back to admire his work. The hum of the energy core now sounded steady, and the lights on the console blinked green. He allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. Then the ship's doors hissed open. Jax looked up. His eyes widened. She walked in boldly. Not a crewmate, not a scout, but a figure he had never expected. An alien woman, her presence commanding even without speech. Her skin was a muted shade of emerald, marked with faint tribal patterns that glimmered faintly in the light. Her eyes were amber, sharp and calculating, observing everything. She moved with the confidence of someone used to danger, unafraid of the small human standing before her. The crew behind Jax froze, unsure whether to draw weapons or retreat. "Identify yourself," Jax shouted instinctively, though his voice lacked authority. She didn't respond. She simply stepped closer, each movement precise, deliberate. The crew murmured among themselves. Orcs rarely tolerated disobedience, and certainly not from one of their own crossing enemy lines. Finally she spoke, her voice low but firm. "I am Jara," she said. "I mean no harm." Jax blinked. The words were clear, but the situation was anything but simple. "How did you get in here?" he asked. "And why?" Jara's amber eyes studied him unblinking. "I am tired of following orders blindly," she said. "I want to see what your species can do. You are underestimated." The crew exchanged glances. Humans underestimated? It was true, but bold aliens? That was new. Jax took a cautious step forward. "Look, if you're here for trouble, it won't end well." Jara tilted her head slightly as if amused. "Trouble? No. Knowledge. Cooperation. I wish to see how humans survive where Orcs fail." It was a strange statement. Humans were not known for brute strength. Orcs ruled the stars in many systems with sheer power and intimidation. Yet here stood one of their own, a high-ranking officer perhaps, willing to ally with humans. The crew relaxed slightly, though tension still hung thick in the air. "Why me?" Jax asked. "Why not the captain?" She gave a small smile. "You fix things. You adapt. That is rare among humans. And rare enough to be interesting." The words stung, but in a good way. Humans were often overlooked in galactic politics, underestimated at every turn. Yet here was one who acknowledged their potential, and in a way it felt like respect. Before Jax could respond, Jara gestured toward the energy conduit he had been repairing. "This is fragile. I can see why your species struggles here. Let me help." Jax hesitated. Accepting help from an alien could be dangerous. Orcs were known to trick humans, using knowledge as bait for betrayal. Yet something in her demeanor, her calm confidence, made him pause. "All right," he said cautiously. "But one wrong move." "Nothing wrong will happen," Jara interrupted, her voice firm. "I am precise." She knelt beside the conduit, her hands moving over the machinery with a grace and skill Jax had never seen. Within moments, She adjusted a few components, realigned circuits, and added subtle enhancements. The hum of the energy core steadied further, and lights blinked green more consistently. Jack stared dumbfounded. The human engineering team had tried for days to stabilize this system. She had done it in minutes. The crew whispered among themselves. Some looked odd, others suspicious. Orcs were powerful, yes, but humans had ingenuity. And now, one of the orcs themselves was showing them a different perspective. Impressive, Jax admitted finally. I didn't think anyone could fix it so quickly. Jara stood, brushing her hands on her uniform. Humans are capable, she said simply. You just need the right conditions to show it. Her words resonated in Jax's mind. He had always believed humans could achieve more than anyone expected. Here was living proof, and a bold reminder that courage and intelligence could be just as powerful as strength. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. Red lights flashed, signaling an incoming Orc patrol in the vicinity. Jax and his team froze. This was the danger they had feared. Orc patrols rarely gave warnings. They struck first, destroyed second. Jara's amber eyes scanned the display. You need a plan, she said calmly. Move to defensive positions, use the narrow corridors. We can make them think the ship is abandoned. Jax nodded, heart pounding. The crew followed her instructions, moving swiftly but quietly. Jara took the lead, directing them with confidence, her movements precise and authoritative. Through the surveillance feed, they saw the Orc patrol approaching, a fleet of sleek, dark ships cutting through space with deadly efficiency. The patrol was not expecting resistance. They believed humans were fragile, incapable of defending themselves. But now they would be wrong. Jara whispered to Jax, Do you understand why I came? He nodded. Yes. You want to prove humans aren't as weak as everyone thinks. Her gaze met his, steady and unwavering. Exactly, and I will not fail. As the Orc patrol drew closer, Jax felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. This was the moment humans had been underestimated, and it was their chance to prove their worth. He looked around at his team. They were scared, yes, but ready. They had ingenuity, courage, and now, an unexpected ally who dared to challenge the norms of her own people. The alarm sounded again. The first Orc ship entered visual range. It was large, imposing, and armed with more firepower than the humans could ever hope to match. But humans had something Orcs didn't always understand: adaptability. Jax clenched his fists. He glanced at Jara. Let's show them what humans can do. She nodded. Together. For the first time in orbit above Korath 7, humans and an alien from the Orc clans worked as one. The crew moved with precision, following Jara's directions, setting traps, and preparing defensive maneuvers. Every corridor became a potential advantage, every weak point a weapon. Outside, the Orc patrol neared, expecting an easy victory. Inside, the humans waited, hearts racing, minds focused, guided by a woman who had walked boldly into their world, unafraid, determined, and daring enough to see potential where others saw weakness. The battle for respect, the first spark of understanding between two species, was about to begin. And in that moment, Jax realized something profound. Bravery came in many forms. And intelligence, courage, and boldness could change the course of history, even in a galaxy ruled by strength. The human crew of the Endeavor worked in tense silence. Even with Jara's guidance, the threat of the approaching Orc patrol weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Every flicker of the ship's systems, every shadow in the corridors, seemed magnified. Humans were used to challenges, but Orcs were something else. Stronger, faster, and far more disciplined. Jax stayed close to Jara as they moved through the ship, checking the status of the energy conduits she had stabilized. He still couldn't believe how effortlessly she had fixed them. Every adjustment she made seemed small, precise, yet had a huge impact. You humans rely too much on brute force in emergencies, Jara said quietly. It slows you down, makes you predictable. Jax frowned. Brute force? We... Intelligence? Adaptation? Subtlety, she interrupted. Those are your strengths. You only see them when someone shows you how to use them correctly. Her words stung, but they also felt like encouragement. Humans often underestimated themselves. Here was one of the Orcs, one of the most feared species in this system, telling him that humans had potential beyond appearances. Why are you helping us? Jax asked again. It doesn't make sense. Your people would never allow this. Jara's amber eyes softened, though the intensity remained. I do not follow blind orders. I follow what is right. Humans are underestimated. I see value where others see weakness. I will not ignore that. The statement made Jax pause. Courage wasn't just physical. It could also mean standing against one's own people. She risked her life, her status, perhaps even her freedom, simply to help humans. That kind of bravery was rare, and humans could learn from it. Before Jax could respond, the ship shook slightly. Outside, Orc patrol ships were forming a blockade around the Endeavor. Their movements were precise, calculating. They did not expect resistance from humans, but they were prepared to enforce their dominance. Jara studied the displays carefully. They do not understand your adaptability, she said. That is their mistake. How do we make them understand? Jax asked. First survive, she replied. Then show them. Jara led the crew to a reinforced corridor that connected the ship's main systems to the defensive turret. The Endeavor glided silently through the dark expanse above Korath 7. Despite the recent encounter, the human crew remained tense. Orc forces were unpredictable, and the patrols had already shown that they underestimated humans at their own peril. Jax moved along the corridor, checking on the engineers who were reinforcing the ship's defenses. He noticed Jara standing near the viewport, her amber eyes scanning the horizon. She was calm, almost unshakable, as if the chaos outside barely registered. You are not afraid? Jax asked. Jara's gaze remained fixed on the stars. Fear is a tool, she said. It sharpens focus. You must use it wisely. Humans tend to panic when they should calculate. Jax nodded, absorbing her words. She was not just guiding them. She was teaching them how to think like a strategist. Humans had courage, yes, but they often relied on improvisation rather than precise planning. With Jara, they could combine instinct with strategy. The warning alarms sounded suddenly. This time, it was not a small patrol. A full Orc fleet emerged from the shadow of a nearby asteroid field. Dozens of ships, black and menacing, moved with deadly precision, cutting off any escape. Prepare for combat, Jax shouted, adrenaline surging. The human crew moved quickly, taking positions at turrets, defense stations, and critical systems. Jara approached him. They will expect you to hide, to flee. That is their mistake. Humans can turn perceived weakness into strength. Jax swallowed hard. How? Use the ship. Use the environment. Be unpredictable. Strike where they do not expect it, she instructed. Your mind is your weapon. The first Orc ship fired, a beam of concentrated energy aimed directly at the Endeavor. The human shields flared, taking the hit, but the ship held. Jax gritted, his teeth. This was only the beginning. Target their engines, Jara said calmly. Hit quickly, then retreat. Make them chase shadows. The humans coordinated swiftly. Engineers adjusted targeting systems while scouts relayed enemy movements. Energy beams struck, disabling the engines of one Orc ship. It spun helplessly, in space forced to retreat. The other Orc ships hesitated, confusion rippling through their ranks. They had not expected humans to act with such precision. Orcs were used to intimidation and brute force. Humans relied on ingenuity, and it was showing results. Jax felt a surge of pride, but he knew the danger was far from over. Another wave of Orc ships approached, larger and more heavily armed. They had learned from the first strike and were ready to crush the humans. Jara's voice cut through the tension. Do not fear them. Fear clouds judgment. Act decisively. Humans survive because they adapt. Now, adapt again. The crew adjusted quickly. Turrets shifted. Power was rerouted. to shields and defensive drones activated. Every human worked with calm efficiency, following Jara's guidance. As the Orcs closed in, one of their commanders, a massive figure in a dark ship, activated a targeted strike. The energy beam hurtled toward the Endeavor. Jax made a split-second decision and ordered the ship to maneuver into the asteroid field nearby. The humans held their breath as the Endeavor weaved between jagged rocks, narrowly avoiding destruction. Orc beams struck asteroids instead, sending fragments flying in unpredictable directions. The humans had turned the environment into a weapon, just as Jara had instructed. "They underestimate your creativity," Jara said quietly, almost to herself. "That is why humans can survive." Jax glanced at her. "And why are you risking so much to help us?" Jara's amber eyes met his. "I am tired of blind obedience. I will not let intelligence be wasted. Humans show potential. Orcs fear it. That is reason enough." The battle raged on. Humans used hit-and-run tactics, striking Orc ships where they were weakest. One engineer, guided by Jara, devised a way to redirect energy beams back at the attackers. Another set of engineers hacked the Orc targeting systems, causing confusion and friendly fire incidents. Jax realized something incredible. Humans had strength, yes, but their real power was in thinking differently. Orcs relied on strength, tradition, and fear. Humans adapted, learned, and turned each disadvantage into an opportunity. Despite the chaos, Jara remained composed, issuing instructions calmly, correcting mistakes before they became fatal. She did not fight like an orc. She fought like a teacher, guiding her students to victory. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, it was impossible to tell. Space combat had a strange way of stretching time. The Orc fleet was battered, forced to retreat, their confidence shaken. They had underestimated humans, and now they paid the price. When the last Orc ship withdrew, silence fell over the Endeavor. Human crews exhaled collectively, relief and exhaustion mingling in their expressions. They had survived, not by sheer force, but by intelligence, courage, and adaptability. Jara turned to Jax. "This was the test. Humans passed. Not because they are stronger, but because they think differently." Jax smiled, though he was still catching his breath. "I never thought humans could actually win against Orcs." "They can," Jara said firmly. "They just need guidance, confidence, and the courage to defy expectations." The crew worked quickly to repair minor damages. Jara assisted where needed, but her primary role remained guidance, teaching the humans to trust their instincts and intelligence. Later, in the quiet of the command deck, Jax reflected on what had occurred. Humans had survived a full-scale Orc attack. They had done more than survive. They had adapted, improvised, and proven that cunning could rival strength. Jara watched him silently. "You are capable of more than you believe," she said. "Humans often rely on luck. I am showing you that intelligence, courage, and boldness can change the outcome." Jax nodded slowly. He had always known humans had potential. Now, under the pressure of life and death situations, they had proven it. "Do you think your people will understand this?" he asked. Jara's expression grew serious. "Some will. Many will not. But the lesson remains. Strength is not only in muscle and firepower. Strategy, adaptability, and courage define true power." Jack smiled faintly. "Then humans have a lot to teach the galaxy." "And a lot to learn," Jara added. "Do not forget that." The Endeavor prepared to continue its mission. Korath 7 was still dangerous, and Orcs would return. But now, humans were no longer merely survivors. They were a force to be respected. With Jara's guidance, they had gained insight, confidence, and the ability to challenge even the most powerful species in the galaxy. Jax walked through the corridors looking at his crew. Each face showed exhaustion, yes, but also determination. Orcs would come again. And when they did, humans would be ready. Jara followed him silently, a quiet reminder of what boldness and courage could accomplish. She had walked into their lives, fearlessly challenged tradition and inspired humans to see themselves as more than weaklings in the galaxy. For Jax and the crew of the Endeavor, the lesson was clear. Survival was only the beginning. Humanity's real strength lay in its mind, its courage, and its willingness to defy expectations, and in the vast darkness of space, that strength was beginning to shine. The Endeavor drifted in orbit above Korath 7, its hull scarred from the recent battle. The crew moved through the corridors with purpose, repairing damage and reinforcing systems. The adrenaline from the Orc attack still pulsed through their veins, but now it was mixed with a new feeling: confidence. Humans had survived a direct assault from one of the most powerful species in the sector. That was no small feat. Jax walked alongside Jara, observing the repair crews. Sparks flew from the hull as engineers welded and replaced critical components. Every system they touched seemed to hum more efficiently under Jara's watchful guidance. "You trust them?" Jax asked, glancing at the young engineers. Jara's amber eyes swept the room. "I do. Humans are cautious but intelligent. They learn quickly when given responsibility. Trust is earned through action." Jax nodded. He had seen it firsthand. Every crew member had risen to the occasion, improvising and adapting when Orcs attacked. Humans were often underestimated, but their resourcefulness was their greatest strength. "I want to show them more," Jara continued. "They need to understand how to combine their skills with strategy. Survival is more than reaction, it is anticipation." Over the next hours, Jara led Jax and the engineers through a series of exercises. They simulated Orc attacks, practiced rapid repairs, and coordinated defensive maneuvers. Each scenario pushed humans to think ahead, to act decisively, and to trust one another under pressure. Jax marveled at their progress. "They're learning fast," he said. "I didn't think we could handle this level of training in such a short time." Jara smiled faintly. "They are capable. You just need to show them the way." Meanwhile, the human scouts monitored Orc communications from orbit. Intercepted transmissions revealed that the Orc commanders were confused and concerned. They had not expected humans to survive the first encounter, and the adaptive strategies had caught them off guard. "Do you see that?" one scout asked, pointing at the display. "They're regrouping cautiously," Jara nodded. "They have underestimated you. That is your advantage. But be vigilant. Underestimation can turn into aggression quickly." Jax understood. The humans had proven themselves once, but Orcs were relentless. The real challenge would come when the Orcs returned with a plan, and they would return. In the quiet of the command room, Jara spoke again. "Humans have courage, but courage alone is not enough. You need discipline, coordination, and trust, Daharai." The calm before the storm stretched across the stars. From orbit above Korath 7, the Endeavor gleamed in the twin suns' weak light. The humans aboard knew that the Orcs would return, stronger and more determined than before. This time they would not underestimate them. Jax moved along the command corridor, checking with each crew member. Engineers fine-tuned energy outputs, scouts adjusted surveillance equipment, and turret operators ran simulations repeatedly. Every system was optimized. The humans had learned from the previous encounters, and now they were ready to demonstrate what intelligence, courage, and adaptability could accomplish. Jara walked beside him, her amber eyes observing the preparations. "They will strike soon," she said. "And they will expect you to panic, but you will not. That is why humans can succeed where Orcs assume failure." Jax nodded. "We've improved every system and we've planned for multiple scenarios. We can't rely on luck this time." "No," Jara agreed. "You rely on ingenuity. That is your true weapon." Hours later, the warning alarms blared. Orc ships appeared from the shadows of an asteroid belt, a full fleet of deadly vessels moving with calculated precision. Their weapon systems glowed menacingly as they scanned for targets. The humans were ready. "Hold positions," Jax commanded. "Focus on weak points, follow the plan." Jara's presence brought calm confidence. She moved between stations, giving guidance, correcting mistakes, and anticipating the Orcs' moves. Humans acted with a precision they had never known before. The Orcs fired first, energy beams slicing through space toward the Endeavor. The humans' shields absorbed the initial hits, but debris scattered from the asteroid belt provided an unexpected advantage. Orc ships adjusted, but every move had been predicted and accounted for. "Now!" Jara shouted. The humans struck with coordinated precision. Turrets fired on weak points, while drones maneuvered behind Orc vessels, forcing confusion in their ranks. Engineers manipulated the energy systems, redirecting beams in unexpected patterns. Orc ships faltered, caught off guard by humans who used brains rather than sheer strength. One massive Orc cruiser attempted a direct assault, aiming at the ship's main reactor. Jack saw it and gave orders quickly. Divert power to shields, and initiate evasive maneuvers. The ship swayed and twisted through the asteroid field, avoiding the attack. The Orc cruiser miscalculated and struck a large rock, sending it spinning into another vessel. Orcs began to realize that the humans were unpredictable and deadly in their unpredictability. Jara watched calmly. "Do not underestimate them. They adapt quickly, but so do you. Stay ahead." Jax felt the adrenaline surge. Every human acted with focus, anticipation, and trust. They were no longer just a crew, they were a force. Orcs had assumed weakness, but humans had turned every assumption into an advantage. Energy beams, explosions, and debris filled the viewport as the battle raged. The Endeavor moved like a predator, striking strategically and retreating before Orcs could react. Humans used the terrain of space itself, the asteroid field, debris, and the ship's upgraded systems, to fight on equal footing. Jara coordinated critical maneuvers. She had interfaced with the ship's targeting system, guiding Jax and his crew to strike in ways that no Orc could predict. Her knowledge of Orc strategy combined with human ingenuity became an unstoppable force. Jax gave the final command. "Focus fire on their command ship. Disable their communications first, then their engines. We end this quickly." The humans worked in unison. Beams struck with surgical precision. Orc communications faltered, engines sparked, and chaos spread through the enemy fleet. Orc ships, powerful and disciplined, were forced to retreat. Humans had turned disadvantage into victory through intelligence, strategy, and courage. When the last Orc ship disengaged, silence returned to the Endeavor. The crew exhaled collectively, exhausted but triumphant. They had survived, and won through skill, quick thinking, and the ability to act boldly when others expected hesitation. Jara's amber eyes glimmered with satisfaction. "You have proven yourselves. Orcs now see what humans are capable of. This is only the beginning." Jax looked at his crew, pride swelling in his chest. "We did it," he said. "We actually did it." "Not alone," Jara replied. "You adapted, learned, and acted decisively. I guided, but the victory is yours. Remember this. Intelligence, courage, and ingenuity will take you further than brute strength alone." The crew worked through the aftermath, repairing minor damages and strengthening defenses. Scouts reported the Orc fleet retreating into distant space, their confidence shaken. Humans had made an impression, and that impression would last. Later, in the quiet command room, Jax reflected on what had happened. Humans had survived impossible odds. They had used their mind, not just their strength, and emerged victorious. "Do you think they'll come back?" Jax asked Jara. "They will," she said. "But now they understand humans are not as weak as they thought. That understanding will change how they approach you next time. You have earned respect, even from your enemies." Jax nodded slowly. "It's amazing to think that humans, often underestimated, can hold their own against Orcs." Jara smiled, faintly. "It is not just strength, Jax. It is courage, adaptability, and trust. You have shown all of these. That is what makes humanity remarkable." The crew gathered in the mess hall, exhausted but exhilarated. Conversations were filled with disbelief, relief, and excitement. They had faced the Orc fleet and survived, but more importantly, They had proven something to themselves. Humans could be more than survivalists. They could be innovators, strategists, and fearless opponents. Jax walked to the viewport looking at the fading orc fleet. "We've changed something," he said softly. "They see us differently now." Jara joined him, silent for a moment. "Yes, but this is only the start. Orcs will return, and the galaxy has more challenges ahead. Humanity must continue to grow stronger, smarter, and braver. This is your legacy in the stars." For the first time, Jax felt a true sense of possibility. Humans were underestimated, yes, but they had turned that weakness into strength. They had survived, adapted, and outsmarted a species that many considered unstoppable. The lesson was clear. Courage and intelligence could overcome even the most formidable obstacles. As night fell over Korath 7, the Endeavor gleamed under the twin suns' dim light. The crew prepared for the future, aware that their next challenge could be even greater. But they were no longer just humans, they were pioneers, strategists, and survivors. Orcs and the galaxy alike would come to understand their potential. Jara watched the crew with pride. She had walked boldly into their lives, defying her own people, and helped humans see their worth. Through guidance, intelligence, and courage, she had shown them that they were capable of much more than they ever imagined. The Endeavor was ready. Humans had survived, learned, and proven themselves. And in the endless darkness of space, that lesson would shine brighter than any star. The Endeavor drifted in orbit above Korath 7, its hull now fully repaired and upgraded after the recent battles. The human crew moved with quiet confidence, no longer tentative, no longer unsure. They had survived impossible odds against one of the galaxy's most feared species, and in doing so, they had proven something important, not just to the Orcs, but to themselves. Jax walked through the corridors observing his crew. Each face showed focus, determination, and pride. Humans had learned quickly, adapted faster than anyone had expected, and acted decisively when it mattered most. What once seemed like weakness had become a strength, and the crew understood it now. Jara walked beside him. "They underestimate humans no longer," she said. "Even orcs who despise weakness now know better. That knowledge changes the balance in the galaxy." Jax nodded. "We survived. We learned. We showed them what humans are capable of, and we did it together." "Exactly," Jara replied. "Humans thrive on courage, intelligence, and adaptability. These traits are rare, even among advanced species. You have proven that your kind can rise above expectation, even in the face of overwhelming odds." From the bridge, scouts reported movement in deep space. Orc forces had gathered far from Korath 7, likely planning their next strike. But Jax and Jara both understood this was different. The Orcs had learned that humans were not to be dismissed lightly. They would approach carefully next time, reconsidering their tactics, respecting the human crew's abilities for the first time. "You think they'll come back?" Jax asked. "They will," Jara said. "But now they will hesitate. Humans have earned a reputation, and reputation carries power. The Orcs know you are unpredictable, intelligent, and capable. That is a new reality for them." Jax walked to the command console and examined the upgrades. Every system, shields, weapons, navigation, and communications, had been enhanced. The humans had used ingenuity to turn a vulnerable ship into a resilient and formidable vessel. Jara had guided them, yes, but the implementation, the creativity, and the daring were entirely human. "Your people are remarkable," Jara said quietly. "You adapt, you learn, you survive, and you inspire others to see what is possible." Jax smiled faintly. "It's not just me. It's the crew. Humans, when challenged, can accomplish incredible things." Jara nodded. "Exactly. That is humanity. You think differently. You act boldly. You survive because you innovate. That is why the galaxy will remember you." Suddenly, a signal appeared on the main screen. It was